Yes, that's correct. Yep. Thanks.
Family, please. There's chairs for the family.
Repeat after me. First, I'm going to make a cut this way, horizontally. Then you're going to repeat the breath after me, and you're going to go down about 3 inches. Okay? Just going to do this.
Friends, I'm going to ask everybody to please fill in behind the family. There's chairs the family is sitting in. There's room under the tent. You just have to squeeze a little bit. So please be careful.
Sorry. Thanks. I'll just leave it up here.
Okay. It's in my hand.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בנודה שיבצני, עמי מנוחות ינעלני, נפשי ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגץ המוות, לא ירא רע כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי, דשנת בשמן ראשי כל סיר רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. Song of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for the sake of his name. And though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You've anointed my head with oil, and my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We come here together today as family, friends, and members of the community to mourn the death and also to honor the life of Robert Bruce Ettleman, Tzvi ben Binyamin. He was a man who was utterly unique in all of God's vast creation, a man who was kind and generous, and caring, and compassionate, a devoted son, loyal brother, beloved husband, an adored father, a loving Zaidi, and a faithful friend to many. He was someone who lived every day of his life with purpose, and someone who made every moment of his life count. And today is a day which none of us wish to see. But as Sefer Kohelet reminds us, La Kozman ve'et lekol chefetz tachat hashamayim. There's a time for every experience. A time to love and a time to hate. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to laugh and a time to cry. A time to be born and ultimately a time to die. But even at a time like today, when the shadow of death has darkened our lives and it's difficult to see, we must remember the words of Sefer Tehillim, Gam ki alech b'geitz hamavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi. We must always remember that even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we need not fear, because God is with us, as God has always been, as God always will be. And God is with Robert too, not in this world, but in the world to come, not in the world of death, but in the world of eternal life. And so now as we reflect on his life, we can do so knowing that while he is not here, he is not gone, and that through the memories that remain in the hearts of those who loved him, he will not be forgotten. There is indeed a time for every experience, a time to be born and a time to die, and there is also a time to remember, and that time is now. So to share some memories of Robert, I'd like to call up several members of Robert's family, beginning with his wife, Janet.
We're gonna try. I don't need this. Can't do this with gloves on. I'm a Floridian. My husband was like an Energizer bunny. He was an avid boater. Oh, how he loved that boat. And his computers, and his RC planes, and traveling, and dentistry, and his patients, but mostly his family. His son Lee, and Karen, whom he thought of as a daughter from the very beginning. And of course the lights of his life, his grandchildren, Levi, Jonah, and Romy. And by the way, he had Parkinson's disease for 20 years. But Parkinson's never had him. Rob never let it define him. Yet he spent time on Zoom calls, educating others on PD and the struggles of the disease and how not to let it get the better of you. Rob grew up in Bethesda, Maryland. I'm going to let his niece and nephew talk about some of that later, but I need to let you know about his high school friends, his group of friends that are still his friends. They may not talk as often, but they get together when they can. They keep in touch. Several of them are here today, and so many are here on Zoom. Thank you. He still has close friends from high school. How many of us can say that? Rob was a good friend. We met at Emory. I dated his fraternity roommate. So we were friends first. What a wonderful way to begin a relationship. We've been married just shy of 45 years. After a residency at the VA in Chicago, too cold, obviously, ironically for him, we followed his cousin Harvey Kirstein to Florida, where he opened his own private practice. Harvey and Rob have been more like brothers than first cousins since we've been here, and it's been such a blessing. He started Gulf Coast Dental Outreach in 2007 after he retired from private practice, and always said it allowed him to practice dentistry through the hands of others. My husband was, at his heart, a teacher. His private patients and staff loved him. He taught at the clinic after he stopped practicing. Even recently, when Rob had private caregivers, he'd sometimes teach them how to work with patients or care for their teeth. Some of his caregivers plan on coming to the memorial service we're having in Florida. What does that tell you about the man Rob was? One night many years ago, we were out to dinner in St. Petersburg with Rabbi Klein, our Tampa rabbi, and his wife, and a man stopped us as we were walking along the sidewalk. He appeared to be homeless or close to it. He approached Rob and the rabbi with a huge smile on his face and said, "Dr. E, do you remember me? You saved me. You gave me my teeth and my smile back. Thank you." This happened many more times than you realize. Rob lived his life with kindness and compassion. He taught me so much about giving, not money, but of himself. He lived every day, even as it became more difficult for him, with joy. When we moved downtown, we moved so that we could still see water every day. His daily walk took him past his beloved boat. I believe when you're an angel to others, angels appear in your life when you need them. An angel came into our life about 8 months ago in the form of Captain Pat and Captain Len, who could take Rob out on his boat several times a month once he could no longer take the boat out safely on his own. And the grin on his face said it all. Rob lived with dignity until the end of his life. To the PD warriors that helped us live our best life with Parkinson's, I cannot thank you enough, and you know who you are. I will be forever grateful. Mindy, Meredith, and Panina, this includes you. Rob and I would not have made it through this past year without any of you, and I will continue to need you and want you in my life. Rob was a special brother to Joyce and Fred, a brother-in-law to Susie and Rich, an uncle that was so loved by Adam, Erica, and Noah that they came to Florida to spend time with him. An uncle that was so loved by Sarah and Gilbert that he took them each on a high school graduation travel trip. An uncle that was so loved by Maya and Talia. Family was everything to this man. His adopted family adopted him. The family that Lee married into became more family to Rob. Adults and kids that he played with, ate with, and celebrated with. Marlene, Florence, Dave, Beth, Evan, Lev, Daniel, Reese, Liel, Dana, Adam, Layla, Mia, and Judd. You too were family to him. They considered him their Zadie Rob. Gulf Coast Dental Outreach is his legacy, but his true legacy is his family. It's the family he raised. Lee is the epitome of Rob. Yes, they look alike and they have the same strange sense of humor, but they are so alike in so many other ways. They are both kind, joyful, giving human beings. Lee is an amazing father because he learned from the best. Rob's dad used to say that everything he did was for the kinder. Rob lived that, and so does Lee. Rob will live on in Lee and the children that Lee and Karen are raising, his grandchildren, Levi, Jonah, and Romy. That's Rob's legacy, his children and his grandchildren. We will miss you, my love, and we will keep your memory alive. I promise.
We'll now hear from Rob's niece, Sarah.
Thinking about how to describe an entire person is not easy. Thinking about how to describe someone as multifaceted as Uncle Robbie is even harder. When I began to think about how I would describe him, the phrase "work hard, play hard" popped into my head. There's no way to describe Uncle Robbie without talking about the two sides he has to him. On the work side, the first thing that came to mind is Gulf Coast Dental Outreach. After years as a successful dentist, when he was no longer able to practice himself, he still found a way to work. He found a way to build a successful nonprofit from the ground up. He found a way to host a golf outing for 14 years and give back to his community. The drive to continue charitable work after years of dentistry work is a good representation of Uncle Robbie's character. Then, on the play side, we have all of his many, many, many hobbies. To get a full understanding of all of his hobbies, you'd probably have to ask his son Lee, my brother Gilbert, or his grandsons Levi and Jonah. Those were most often his partners in crime. From woodshop creations to flying drones to tinkering with any boat he could get his hands on, Uncle Robbie never stopped his hobbies. It was amazing growing up to see someone so successful in life still make time for play. It really made me look up to him. He made every family vacation more fun with his toys when they worked, but especially when they didn't. I have many memories of being at their cabin in North Carolina and watching Uncle Robbie fly a drone into a tree over and over again, just to pick it back up and try again. If you knew him, I'm sure you've witnessed a degree of this passion for play. Now back to the work side, the other most prominent example in my eyes of Uncle Robbie putting in work is his marriage to my Aunt Janet. They've been married for 45 years, and I can't speak from experience, but everyone knows that marriage takes work, so I can only imagine how much consistent effort and love they have put into such a happy and long marriage. I am fortunate that in addition to my parents, my Aunt Janet and Uncle Robbie have served as an amazing example for a happy and healthy relationship. It is evident in the beautiful family that is here with him today. I only hope that one day I have a relationship as successful and long as theirs. Now, it would not be a speech about Uncle Robbie if I didn't mention his infamous jokes. It is unlikely that you would get through a conversation with him without him cracking a joke. Whether or not I understood the joke, I always ended up laughing at the end because of his laugh. So to close this out, Uncle Robbie, we miss you already, and I'm sure you've used this one before, but what did the dentist say to the golfer with a cavity? You have a hole in one. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Erica.
A second. There's something I had on my phone before I read my mother's words. I had this book. I'm Rob's niece, Erica, Joyce's daughter. I have this book that a friend gave me this year for my birthday in October, but I saved it to start reading it on January 1st, because every day there's a page. Just you get up in the morning and you read a page of something to think about. This was today's. I'm just going to read the quote that was at the beginning of the passage. Let us prepare our minds as if we come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time. It's from Seneca. So it made me think of Rob, because he didn't wait for anything. He did it every day. I'm gonna read some words from my mom, but I do have to say that 2 months ago, I sat at my grandmother's, and I stood up here at my grandmother's funeral, and I sat out there in the middle of my remarks, and I looked at Rob in the eye, and I told him how proud of him I was for the work that he and Janet, Lee and Karen and all the kids put in to what they were doing in Tampa. I got the opportunity to do that, which most people can't say, and I'm so grateful for that. It wasn't the first time I told him how proud I was, but it was so recent, so that meant a lot to me. Rob and I would have a great time when he would come up to Breckenridge for his week for the Parkinson's ski program in Breckenridge, and I was his companion. My brother did it, Lee did it. We all had the opportunity to spend time with him up there. And it was, of course, so courageous for him to come from Tampa all the way up to the altitude of Breckenridge to ski, and it was challenging. And it wasn't about the skiing. It was the time in the car on the way to Breckenridge. It was our chats. It was, in the first year rooming with him, getting him situated, spilling all of his pills all over the floor and figuring out which one was which. And it was the hot chocolate stops where he would treat the whole staff of the Breckenridge ski team for hot chocolate. And it was all the laughs and the sharing and the words of wisdom that came from Rob to the rest of the group. And everyone couldn't wait to see him year after year. So he will be missed. These are words from my mom. It's big sis, Joyce. It isn't supposed to be the older sister who stands by the grave of her younger brother. But the universe works in mysterious ways, and I've yet to figure out why things happen and why when things happen. And here we are, saying goodbye to Rob each of us filled with so much sadness and fury about what happened and wondering why this happened to Rob. Each one of us here already knows why we have admired Rob's character, purpose, and passions, as well as Rob's contributions to making our world a better place. We all know how Rob epitomized what a mensch is. Yes, Rob was a man of integrity, morality, support, dignity, and honor. Rob knew what was right, and he acted on it. Each of us here already knows that about Rob. I doubt there is anyone here who does not feel a profound loss. What you might not know is what this loss means to me. At first, I considered how much I have lost, and then I decided to reposture my thinking to how much I have gained from my brother Rob. Profound losses, yes, but more importantly, Rob left me with profound gains. The most significant is learning how to be resilient, smack in the face of adversity. I could always count on Rob to get me. Any references to our shared history and inside jokes now create a memory and a smile. Rob was the only person with whom I could play Remember When. I could always count on Rob to explain various issues related to finances. With Rob's business acumen, we had made decisions about our family business based on Rob's knowledge, insight, and research. I could always count on Rob to have my back. I could always count on Rob to listen to me and give constructive feedback on various issues with Mom and Dad. And particularly during the past 8 years, when so many decisions needed to be made about Mom, I could count on Rob to help me nail down what needed to get done. I could always count on Rob to show up. Every time the family made a plan to get together, and even though it became increasingly difficult for him to travel, Rob showed up. And needless to say, I could always count on Rob for every solution related to my teeth. I am beyond grateful that Rob enjoyed the most important things in life. He had comfort, joy, and an abundance of love from his family. I know that Rob had many takeaways from our parents, and I think two of the most important ones are, first, looking at your cup as half full and not half empty. Rob played his deck with skill, strategy, and wisdom. He didn't focus on what he could not do with Parkinson's. He focused on what he could do. And the other takeaway is for the kinder. It's all about the kids. Rob created a legacy of lasting impact to guide them, far beyond anything monetary. Rob created a rich legacy of good character, a stellar reputation, ethics, and core values, all for the kinder: Lee, Karen, Levi, Jonah, and Romy. And finally, I will always be grateful that Rob married Janet. I cannot imagine anyone who could be a more devoted, efficient, supportive, compassionate, patient, and loving wife to Rob than Janet Ettleman. And because of Rob, Janet is my biggest gain.
We'll now hear from Jonah. Noah, excuse me.
Yes, he would.
Hi there. I'm Erica's brother and Robbie's nephew and Joyce and Fred's son. And I have some words here from my brother Adam, who wasn't able to join us. He's thousands of miles away. So this is from Adam. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person to honor Rob. Over the years, I didn't get to spend a lot of time with Rob other than big family simchas and our yearly get-together at Thanksgiving. But in this past year, I was lucky enough to spend some quality time with him in Florida when Janet traveled to Chicago. I know he enjoyed my visit, but I don't think he knew how much I got out of it. First off, it was a chance to relax and take a vacation in Rob and Janet's new place in Florida. I loved being by the water, and while I'm not really into boats, I got to experience Rob's passion for boating. With Harvey at the wheel and Rob being able to sit back and enjoy the ride, he didn't have a worry in the world. Although I think he would have been happier if Harvey let him steer. Rob almost became a different person the minute he got on the boat, feeling the wind on his face, the smell of the water, and the sound of the engine. I could tell this was truly his happy place, and it made me happy. But what I really got out of spending time with Rob was the chance to see someone who wouldn't settle to just go through life sitting down. During my visits with him, despite the fact that he wasn't supposed to stand up on his own, Rob persistently and relentlessly stood up, and I don't think it was just to stretch his legs or to defy the symptoms of Parkinson's. I think standing up was just Rob's way of life. We've all heard the expression, he's a stand-up guy. It means a person of good character, and sure, Rob was a stand-up guy with compassion for other people, a loving husband, son, father, grandfather, brother, and uncle. He was a stand-up guy who liked to literally stand up in life and move forward. At times, standing up was a challenge for him, and certainly for Janet when he wouldn't listen. But I saw this drive to always stand up as a way Rob lived his life. To stand up for things he believed in, to stand up to challenges he faced, and to stand up to life the way he wanted to live it, not the way his body was telling him. The quality time I spent with Rob was also filled with great memories of Mel Brooks movie marathons, watching him laugh at scenes he knew by heart, and just when one movie would end, he'd want to start the next one to experience with me the corniest of jokes. Rob was not only a stand-up kind of guy, but he had a stand-up comedian sense of humor. Rob knew funny. In fact, even as a young kid, I remember my Uncle Rob getting a kick out of telling corny jokes or teasing me with Three Stooges hand gestures. Rob had a silly sense of humor that I loved. As a child, my Uncle Rob didn't feel like an adult. He came across like a big kid to me. One of my favorite memories of my uncle was saving my butt when I needed a science fair project and didn't have any ideas and saved it for the last minute. While at dental school, he came to my rescue by helping me pull together a presentation on plaque. And he took what was a stressful situation and a boring assignment and made it fun for me. I think I even won an award in that science fair, so thank you, Uncle Rob. Rob taught me a lot more than plaque. His resilience, passion for life, and love of giving back in the world are things I always admired and will miss, because he was a guy who stood up and didn't coast through life sitting or lying down. He has left a legacy in our family and his community that will continue for many years to come.
Now we'll hear from Rob's son Lee.
It was my 10th birthday, and a bunch of my friends were coming over for a sleepover. That morning, my dad was out futzing around, on the boat of course. He took a step off the back deck, tripped on the lines, and fell to the deck hard. He used an oar to pull himself up through the backyard and into the house. After a trip to the ER, he was fine, except for a broken knee. But my dad wouldn't let that stop him. My friends and I still had a water balloon fight, and he sat right there and cheered us on. We still all gathered in the family room and watched the three ninjas strike back, and he was right there with us, leg outstretched on an ottoman, enjoying the candy with the rest of us. That was my dad. He loved life. He always wanted to make the most of it. He wanted to share everything that life had to offer with his family. and he wouldn't let any adversity stop him. In doing so, he taught me a lesson without having to say a single word. Live your life, have fun, share the fun with others, repeat, and don't let anything stop you. He was a lifelong boater, starting with Pop in Maryland, and passing that passion on to me. Some of my favorite memories were our overnight boat trips to marinas all around Tampa Bay, Dad teaching me how to sail in the lake behind our house, or building a boat out of cardboard with him. Even just working on the boat at the dock was a repeated weekend activity. There was that time my dad, the dentist, fixed the boat engine with dental floss. But mostly there was something special about being out there, just him and I, the wind and the waves. I learned the checklists to get the boat ready to go, how to drive it, dock it, even use those old paper navigation charts. But boating, like life, is sometimes relaxing, sometimes exhilarating, sometimes frustrating. Sometimes the seas got rough and we had to keep going. I don't think I realized it at the time, but through boating, Dad helped build my self-confidence and taught me another one of those unspoken lessons. Family was always important to Dad. He had an unbreakable bond with his parents and sister. The relationship he had with my mom was always so loving. They traveled the world together. Every trip painstakingly documented in a video montage, with the credit screen proudly proclaiming another boat lift production. I don't think I ever saw my mom and dad fight. They set an example for what I strive for in my own marriage. He loved my kids, Levi, Jonah, and Romy, more than anything in the world, and they adored their Zadie. I'm so sad that they won't be able to experience more of what Zadie could have brought into their lives. He was also a spectacular Uncle Rob, forging incredible relationships with his nieces and nephews and extended families. You heard from 3 of his nieces and nephews today, and he had just as strong a relationship with my wife's sister's children. Despite having no blood relationship, they were a part of the family, and they always looked forward to Zadie coming to town to play with them. Dad had a lot of hobbies, and he always looked for ways to inspire others with those hobbies. With boating, he once showed up in a boat behind the home of a new neighbor, asked if he wanted a ride, and created a lifelong friend. A few $1,000s later, that friend also became a lifelong boater. He was a talented woodworker and always made creations for his family, including a rocking chair for Levi. We skied a lot as a family growing up, and after Parkinson's made that harder, he found a way to keep going. He skied for several years at a Parkinson ski program in Breckenridge, and I had the privilege to join him in that program. Finally, he was an aviation enthusiast. That extended from taking me on rides in planes with no engines, which Mom probably loved, to flying those remote-controlled airplanes and drones, which he loved to do with his grandkids, or anyone else who happened to be nearby. Yesterday, Jonah asked if there were drones for Zadie to play with in heaven. Live life, have fun, share with others, and repeat. You all know my dad battled with Parkinson's. He was diagnosed young and only 49 while I was in high school. He had help, lots of it, mostly from my mom, who was a hero and never stopped trying and never stopped believing. But he was determined never to let that disease tell him what he could and couldn't do. You know about Gulf Coast Dental Outreach. A few years after his diagnosis, he enrolled himself in a business course at Kellogg. After class, I sat with him over dinner at Gino's East Deep Dish Pizza, where he literally sketched the plan on the back of a napkin that would become the Gulf Coast Dental Outreach Clinic, a nonprofit he would go on to found and lead for the rest of his life. The volunteer dentist did the dental work, my dad did the treatment plans, and together with my mom, they grew the clinic, donated their time and money, rallied the whole community to its cause, and have helped thousands of patients. For the patients, it was a chance to get their smiles back. For my dad and for our family, it was another way to teach and exemplify that same lesson all over again. Keep living life, keep sharing with others, repeat, and never give up.
We heard several times of Rob's love for boats and boating. And so I want to conclude before the memorial prayer with the following midrash. In the book of Kohelet, it says that the day when one ends their journey in life is actually more of a blessing than the day when one begins it. It's a strange idea, and the rabbis explained it with a story about two boats, one that was arriving in the harbor and another that was just setting out on its voyage. And noticing that everybody was celebrating the boat that was setting out on its voyage, and no one was celebrating the boat that was arriving, a wise man who happened to be standing on the dock noted that it should really be the other way around. People shouldn't rejoice at the boat that's leaving the harbor because they don't know what conditions it may meet, whether it will be successful on its journey, whether it will come home in peace. Rather, people ought to celebrate the boat that's returned because it has completed its journey, it has been successful, and it has come home in peace. Robert has had a meaningful and beautiful journey in life. He's completed it, he's been successful, and now he's come home in peace. May his memory be a blessing for all of us. I'd ask you now to please rise. I'm going to recite the memorial prayer in memory of Robert. Amalei Rachamim, Shochem Bamromim, Amtze Menucha Nechona Kanfei Shechina, B'malo Kedoshim Utorim, Kezora Kiyam Azirim, Nishmat Tzvi Ben Binyamin, Shelach Leolamo, Bavo Shanachnu Mitpalelim Bi'ad Azkarat Nishmato, Began Eden Te'eh Menuchato, Lachem Bal Rachamim, Yastereo B'Seder Knafav Leolamim, Vitzur Chaim Nishmato, Adonai Unachalato, V'yanuach B'Shalom HaMishkavo V'nomar Amen. We're now going to lower the Aron into the ground. Once the Aron is lowered, we'll place the vault top on top of the Aron, and then we're going to proceed with the burial. In Jewish tradition, the act of burial is referred to as an act of chesed shel emet, an act of true loving kindness. And with that in mind, in just a moment, once they're ready for us, we're going to invite everybody who feels able to come forward and to place some earth on top of the Aron. Once everybody has had an opportunity to engage in this act of kindness, then we're going to rely on those of you who are able to engage more directly in the burial. The earth is right here. It's very wet and very thick, so don't strain yourself, don't hurt yourself doing it. There'll be 3 shovels here, and we'll do this last act for Rob. the earth in the pile is too heavy, there's a small bucket of sand over there.
Friends, at this time, the live stream is going to conclude. The family should know no more sorrow.